And today's talk is Within a Dream, Expressing the Dream, and the introduction. This talk is written to introduce a class I'll be doing, Within a Dream, Expressing the Dream, Muchu Setsumu. And the title is taken from Master Dogen, his 39th fascicle of the Shobogenzo. Through the years, I have not read Dogen with any real passion. Primarily, my contact with his writings was through practicing at Dharma Rain. In the past few years, my meditation practice deepened in unexpected ways, and intuitively I felt I understood Dogen and was drawn to some of the fascicles. With the Ocean Mudra, I related mostly to how the fascicle resonated for me. With Muchu Setsumu, I have taken the time to listen to commentary on Dogen's sources and his particular insights. As a teacher, I am responsible for not leading people astray with merely personal inclinations. So a respect for answering my own questions, so a respect for structure and fundamentals within Buddhist tradition is vital. As a teacher, I'm responsible for not leading people astray with merely personal inclinations. So a respect for structure and fundamentals within Buddhist tradition is vital. Most importantly, I am answering my own questions in regard to the fascicle, and hopefully to suggest to you your own questions. The class is subtly underpinned by the fascicle, but is not directly related to the fascicle. The dream before reality, the nightmare before tragedy, fright before the monster, nausea before the fall. The world is a dream imagined. Doing the class has been on my mind for a while, wanting to write about and share my experience and insight into dream. Not about specifics of the night dream, but intimations in regard to the quality and significance of dreaming, of which the night dream is a part. Dream as the basis of my soul life, yet not in a conscious way, and soul not permanent or separate, but enfolded firmly within its own truth, a synthesizing power poised between mind, spirit, and body, the marrow of the middle way, inviting all into an adventure with the poetic basis of inspiration, cultivating an ability to dream well. I was an art student in the 1990s at Rutgers University, Mason Gross School of the Arts in New Brunswick, New Jersey. The trajectory of being an artist, a journey I believe I was born into, my receptivity to powerful and difficult imagery as innate, awakened and oddly kept alive through events that took place in my home. Rutgers was conceptual in its orientation, and I experienced some resistance to my imagery, the use of images, which is very different than the use of concepts, and how I approached my life as an artist. This is a good thing, as I was forced to focus on the power and value these images held for me. How painting or writing them was not a choice, as nothing else would do. In regard to Dogen and Zen, meditation and study, the desire to foster compassion and wisdom as deepening of our natural inclination. We really are already kind, we are already calm, we are already enlightened and Buddha nature. We have just lost touch with these things. And so the practice just brings us back to these particular ways that these ways of being are innate or natural for us. Concurrent in some capacity with a creative practice. And a creative practice doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an artist, that making paintings, it's a very broad way of looking at how you are approaching the things that you are doing, and not so much, a particular thing that you're doing. So moment by moment, we craft this life. Day to day, we give this true nature body right now. So dates for the class. This is an introduction to a class I will be doing, and the date is March 5th through April 9th, and 6:30 to 8 p.m. with a strong encouragement to come to meditation, which I think is 4:30 to 6 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays, and this class is on a Wednesday. The class is designed to introduce ways to enter and cultivate archetypes through dreams, poetic reverie, and practice. There is no special ability needed here. There is no lack of gifts. More likely, there is a lack of appreciation for our gifts and the world's gifts. All the world, and we ourselves, take part in universal themes and patterns, innate powers that motivate, challenge, and nourish. Dreams. Dreams, I can't fathom their portent, this flowing on of images. And she speaks in the language of flowers and sings a flower song, to sing the petals of strange roses. O eyes of night, flow into the dawn. Her face the darkness carries forth, opening wide the journey. Again and again, our story begins. In a dream, expressing the dream. In a forest is a woman embedded in a tree. Its roots her mind, and branches are her hair. The dark hollow, the belly, a matrix filled with seeds. She dreams the earth, its color, its faith, its memory. She dreams the sky, its open space, its blue. The knots and hollows contain her silence and her mystery. However, the woman was so much a part of the tree, she was unable to walk or dance. Although she was a being of great and ancient beauty, yet there was no light for her beauty to be seen. Two kanzians, two aspects of her life, the young and the old and the new, and trust. When things press from within, how shall I read them? If I have faith, what, where, how is this faith? A woman comes into my dream. She puts her head upon my lap. I stroke her short, black, pencil-straight hair. I tell her it is all right. The labyrinth, seemingly out of nowhere, out of an apparent nowhere, a life becomes, day by day, a work, our vow, a promise. And the eye, the ear opens wider to ask where we are most at home. And how do I turn toward the things of the world? And things here is, I put a capital T because I'm not using things as objects. It is to reach for a larger experience of the world and enter into the interiority of things. And again, things are capital, and not an attitude of a thing as an object. and that is so they become my own. And to become my own, I come into a relationship with the things in the world around me. I take notice and I see them as living beings with their own presence and their own voice and their own interest in me as well as my interest in them. So I will read that again. How do I turn toward the things of the world, reach for a larger experience of the world, enter into the interiority of things, and so they become my own? Is it a garden of paradise, or moving through buried and secret memory? Is it being with our children, or the plainness of a hidden corner, a narrow corridor, a chest of drawers, a candle, an old and ancient oak? Perhaps it is about a life spent talking with the trees, the rain, and the mountains. These discordant, invisible voices settle in our belly, lodge in the heart, or push us from behind, and we learn to listen better. The half and the quarter moon smiling, her slender crescent facing upwards. We enter this middle ground, the Sambhogakaya realm, one face turning toward the world, one face turning back toward eternity. Yet, at times, something in us wants to say no, and sometimes with good reason. At times we are in the way. We learn to move ourselves out of the way. We learn to say yes, a wholehearted yes. Yes to the life I am, again and again, yes to whatever this life may bring. The middle way, our adventure into the inner story and finding freshness of mind. This third thing arising, like the 10,000 beautiful things of our world, as the many faces of the soul. We have not been born into the world of stories, united collectively through a shared vision. What is the value of stories? We need to begin again, anew, to find our story, our life embedded in a greater story, but a story that is virgin, suggested, working from the inside out, and less known, and in uncertain, undiscovered ways our own. All beings have their stories, not a linear progression to a predestined ending, but a labyrinth of connections, connections to our great roots, memory, a genuine history. I wish to make tribute through images and words that evoke the mystery, to give body to the myth world, the magical and imaginative potential of a cosmos, images and stories embedded in the psyche, the very structure of consciousness. I would like to encourage people to listen more thoughtfully, to see, to hear, within the ordinary events of our days, the quiet intuitions of the universe. Now, a great old tree is a majestic being. Its green leaves shimmer, its bark sepia, gray, black, and flowing, her roots deepening into fresh new loam. But there were none to see these things, no light for her beauty to be seen. Archetype and interlude into stone. The archetypal fantasy within the tale or poem is not literal, yet profoundly real. The vision happening years before the poem or group of paintings, and years before certain events in your life evolve and open up. To express, seeking to express a particular way of seeing, a first utterance like a premonition. The core suggested is always right here, constant and continuous, vital and active, albeit unconscious, like the Buddha always present, reciting the sutra. The creative work begins as a continuous movement inward, and for me, opening into a below, beneath, re-entering the Gordian knot. And the Gordian knot is the great knot of the cosmos, and Alexander the Great was someone who slashed open the Gordian knot. So it's not the knots that are personal, it is a symbol, I guess, of the knot of the whole cosmos. Unraveling, becoming undone, a slow cleansing of what we might term self or center. And James Hillman, the great archetypal psychologist, describes the working of dreams as the removal of certain elements and factors out of life, giving them soul values. And this entails a movement away from the world, a death-making, turning back toward the archetype, a movement off-center, into the wilderness, away from a merely human-centered view. And this is not a movement away from compassion or care. The angel of wisdom, the angel of compassion, is an image lived and resonant, complex and vital. She is singing in the distance. Can you hear her? And I can hear her. I really can hear her. Recognition day by day, revealing itself through karma, is an assimilation of inner life events distilled through time, the timeless and language, twisted, discordant, a blurring of the edges, a slow, continuous, and inward turning. We do not realize how provocative and primal these intimations of our depth are. Our fear clothed in old memory, the discarding and shedding of this memory. Rooted in all beings, devoted to all things, as myself moving with all beings, even in the most ordinary circumstance, our reaching unfolds in unanticipated ways. Images as a poetic basis for language, encompassing language in the broadest sense, which includes the visual, words, gesture, ritual, color, a silent pressing of our interiority into tasks. And it's really interesting that in Ireland, the rural populations, and they're mostly not literate, but this kind of practice that we do is a part of their daily life and their daily work. And they don't write anything, and they never do a Dharma talk or even any particular kind of work, but it is just something that is pressed into their daily life as farmers. So I thought that was especially beautiful. That, it just was very, very direct and immediate, this process, this inner process. To seek a new language is needed to assimilate the uncertainty of the times and of our lives. To lose our ground by opening, falling through gaps and chasms. And as an artist, losing your ground is a positive thing. Through new ways of thinking and feeling, images felt as an interior seeing, primal and original, to be at peace and breathe easy. We know we have come home. Stones. In my hand, a stone evokes physical beauty. In dreams, a magic presence. Firstborn of the sea, unstable like fire flowing. Stones are alive, they radiate outward from dark primal centers invisible to the eye. Inhabiting the forest, hills, and streams, mosses grow upon them. Large rocks by the seaside gather as a community, harboring seeds, sea pods, and small creatures in their crevices and hollows. Adorned in reds and striated ochres, stones lie at the bottom of streams as pure beauty, smooth and slippery, embedding in the sand like jewels. Animals and plants impress themselves on the surface of the stone, imprinting their shadow in form, in time, a symbiotic unity. The stone is cool, hard, and enduring earth, like bone and shell, moving to a slower rhythm. A stone is hot and molten. Stones have current and ebb and flow. Stones are quietly dreaming. Living the dream, interlude, story woman, myth woman. Most of us have not learned faith. We don't live in a world of faith. We see ourselves as hapless, dependent on luck or opportunity, rare talent, power dynamics, who's to blame or in control. We come to religious centers to absorb and realize teachings and practices not directly integrated or shared with the world we live in. An expression of native vision, even aspects of kindness and compassion, can feel out of place in environments geared to standard, efficiency, and policy. Great doubt, great faith, groundless, soft belly up, every circumstance as potential, a first memory, a repetition of an original memory. The depth and the dark, vulnerable and tremulous, step by step, our potential to realize an inner truth, our original promise made manifest. The moon, like an eye, white, luminous, opens wide, hangs like a piece of the sky, like eyes large, cat-like, snake-like, sun-like, me-like, with the tree roots reach into black coal, dirty, dusty underground beneath, absorbed, lost, and or bleeding, embracing a whole world, invisibly resonant and light. And a serpent curled, asleep within the hollow. He is verdant, moist, newborn, a rare jewel of the forest. He rests his body, still and present. He too is dreaming. To live our dream, our life imagined through story, healing as imagination, image in the way of a deepening truth. Myths embrace multiple impossibilities, our being here now, of the many layers and perspectives with which we shall participate. The imagery in my own work is generated from within. It is imaginal and mythical. These works are an expression of vow, an interior quest and deeply personal myth. And I became an artist out of a profound need to express imagery and ideas integral to my life and experience, but also out of a love of beauty, how it is rooted in sacred forms and tradition. As a young child, I suffered a serious illness, which brought out a series of ink drawings, an expression of raw vision I believed to be imprinted within me. Years ago, when asked by a friend, how did I, quote unquote, know what to do, I said I followed an image. And that is a crazy thing to say, but the image saved. And years later, charcoal drawings emerged, inspired by my introduction to African dance and ritual performance. Working alone in the 90s, I found my connection to the feminine. I wrote poetry and created paintings and prints that spoke to my kinship with nature and the elements. This was an opening of the heart. Trees, stones, the moon, they became my ancestral teachers and encouraged a search for a formal relationship to a spiritual tradition. I read spiritual texts, immersed myself in fairy tales and mythologies. Within and all around us is a vital matrix revealing color, sound, and our capacity to dream. These images sustain us because their depth and perception resonate with the profound sense of what is real. I have stayed close and true to what for me has been most difficult, and these words are exemplary for how I have lived my life and how I work to create a language for these images, what arises unbidden within us, moments of utmost importance, working to clarify these moments of the soul, twisted, slow, it writhes and rests. Images like persons, they erupt, they rattle the self. The more insight we gain into ourselves, into emptiness, the more it rattles, nevertheless heals. A movement forward, yet entrenched in the infinite, not of an established past, but through a knowing, and always touching many possibilities. Our quest for ancestral connections as an inner relationship with the ancestry of seeds. Like the tree, it grows deep, its rings expansive from the inside out, and the forest sees through invisible eyes with which it leaves its leaves and branches spread. And we as well, arms outstretched wide, we inwardly reach. Practice itself, what we call awakening, cultivates flexibility and fresh occasions. The vision can be sensory and concrete or dark and fabulous, both open to the imaginal, but not literal or single in meaning. It is an image language of texture, pebbles, seeds, blood, belly, and bone, of water and owls, tortoises, deities, satyrs, and dragons, fire and demons, a white oak, a dog, and the mountains, and of various in and outscapes. And none of these things is merely what it is. Our relationship with the 10,000 beautiful things depends on imagination, each event or being a doorway, opening into beauty, pattern, the invisible, the mystery and origin. Not origin like when did something begin. Origin as prayer, as vow, and the inner spark. The metaphor as personal. We are thoroughly involved in the risk of connection. Myth as a way of seeing. Stories opening into stories. Images dark and fabulous as nature, as our nature. Stories simple yet profound, suggestive and fertile, able to support diverse perspectives, multiple layers of change and shifting meanings. And the archetypes are expressions of value, reflecting back both the great and small themes. They encourage our enthusiasm. And James Hillman, again, a great archetypal psychologist, speaks of instinct as metaphor and that its original sense meant to see, imagination as primary and as my seeing. Henry Corbin, Islamic philosopher and mystic, speaks to the tawil. And tawil in Islam is a term related to the inner journey, to cause to return, to lead back, to restore one's origin. The voice of the image is one's own voice. In the practice of meditation, of the deep work of the psyche, we do turn the mind back. We do not know, and yet we do return, and transformation takes place. Interlude. Myth woman, story woman. Voiceless, so gently rocking in the cradle of the breath, her grief absorbed by the night's loam. Drawn into the earth, drawn down, she swallows whole pebbles, seeds, bones, the branches and roots, embraced peaceably at the hearth in the bowels of the earth. The goodness of poetry is to be with the 10,000 things. And one night the woman in the tree looked up at the moon and said, "O moon, eye of the night, sing your sweet music, share with me your light." "Yes, dear woman," replied the moon, "I shall share with you my light." Ring upon ring her thread reweaves, new life into the circulation of things. Death unfolds her rich jeweled green. Tree woman, half a woman, half a tree. Her vines coil, thorny, slow-moving, her loam thick, rich, wet, and black. Her life is a fiery furnace, a belly of bellies. Finding voice, interlude with the owl. And the serpent out of his own body produced a stream, one warm, one cold. Two serpents out of no place arise. Two serpents each produced out of their own body a stream, one warm, one cold. And that was how they spoke out of the dream, how spirits of the water hear. They listen with great attention. They whisper, then act, to cleanse the distress of the dawn, the forest, the old oak, the woman in the tree, the newly born green serpent, bathed in the voices of the dead, which now brings happiness. This is how spirits of the water hear. They perk up their inner ears to listen. They whisper. This is how spirits of the serpents hear, arise spontaneously in the forest of the 10,000 beautiful things. And I'm walking in the woods, my footprints firm. A single act of stepping sounds. One foot after the other speaks, as the motion of my walking. Feet moving firmly moving, yet firmly placed. The hard, dark soil, the dry leaves crackle to relieve. The anguish of the forest, a dark, hungry space in the forest, brings forth all beings, and with blessings they gather. And finding voice, expressing voice, even this particular word, voice, stimulates. I am moved to imagine. I hear particular voices rustling in the wind, on my walks, in the midst of my work, lodged in the heart as original memory, a cacophony of voices, eyes, the ears, the many hollows like mouths of the forest, surrounded by leaves, barks, and the roots of trees, they sing. To spark the imagination, the expression of otherness is greater than self-expression, greater than the unreflected mouthing of conventional view. The totality of the 10,000 beautiful things, the whole spiritual journey is seen as a struggle to find one's voice and the quest for interior values, which is deeply personal, but personal with a capital P, deep and interpenetrating, archaic value expressed through the person and the cosmos, seeing itself and expressing itself as you and through you. A personal factor that includes, in a centered and powerful way, as myself, the expression of the Buddha. The Buddha speaks, and the 10,000 beautiful things. Without voice, we become a victim of circumstance. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen the movie The Joker. If you've ever seen that movie. Yeah, and I watched it again just to check. Sometimes I remember things in a funny way. But, it really was about a young man, and he had a neurological issue. And he really needed help to find his way, and no one lent a hand. And, he had no voice. Not literally, but, he had no way to know himself and to know the world he lived in and to find his way. And what was interesting, I thought, was that all of the figures in the movie, his mother and the girl who lived in the building with him and the employer and the show host, and the mayor, and all of these different figures were going through the motions, but in a way also had no voice. And it would be difficult to see this because this sense of having a voice is invisible, and something that, in order to begin to recognize this as a possibility, all of these different figures in the story come together to point you to a particular possibility. And the possibility itself, the possibility of having voice, your own voice, in itself opens, most of these figures, these people were living in this very enclosed box, and none of the figures were speaking to one another. People were just kind of, stuck, in this culture. There was the social worker too, and everyone was kind of sorrowful and lost. And so the sense of this finding voice, of a way of breaking through this very concrete sense of how things are and how things have to be, is the beginning of reaching out to one another. And that's why it's kind of really important, penetrating through, finding my own relationship, to the things that I'm learning. Something that in a way is so very personal to me, but personal in a really big way, because it's personal in the sense that I'm connected, and I'm truly connected to all of the different things that are in the world, and that I experience as outside, but really so much a part of me. So I think that the sense of not having voice, no matter what's happening in our life, is responsible for so many things that we see that go on in the world around us. And that if you kind of are connected to things that are happening, even difficult things, there's a kind of freedom and a belonging, that makes a very big difference. So anyway, the movie didn't turn out really well. But the point is that it could have turned out differently. And the small things that we do, in the practice, and we feel like, what difference does it make? But I think that these things that we do with the practice, with any kind of practice, with any kind of connection or good work that I do, makes a really big difference. It's kind of like it vibrates out, and in ways that can be unforeseen. So with that old clown, do people know the movie, or am I just...
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this was the second time I watched it, and it took the second time to see this particular potential in the movie. So watch it again and see what you think. See how you feel about the things that I'm saying. Anyway, this is my homage to the true work of the Bodhisattva. And I refer again to Samantabhadra, loving activity in the world. And in the Lotus Sutra, he is protector of beings who study, recite, and actualize the teachings. And Samantabhadra is the main protagonist in the Avatamsaka, a bodhisattva of practice, protector of the sutra, as well as those who are devoted to the practice. And he is a source of vows. And I personally experienced Samantabhadra as my wounded bodhisattva, learning about myself in relation to the world I lived in, which was somewhat troubled and painstaking, yet stimulating and needful, an important aspect of my practice. However, so much of what I'm learning now, what I glean from the arts, poems, stories, and scriptures, grounded, clear-eyed, authentic, and able to function, what has brought me great happiness, that which I would not have found had I not been moved as an artist by the Sambhogakaya realm. And I know that the Sambhogakaya is the arts, but again, it's the art as an alchemical transforming realm and something that each of us can touch, like we touch the spiritual Buddha nature, we can also touch the creative nature. And that's this kind of middle realm, this realm of the soul that I'm adding to spirit and body, and also the realm of image, which is the natural expression of imagination and the soul. Interlude, owl. Owl perches among sundry branches. He who is of the nature of trees. Owl who is of the nature of the hollow, who sings the forest in somber tone. Owl with eyes adept, golden, piercing. He listens intense, attuned, ear holes honed over aeons toward his prey. Wings spread impossibly bright, silent, expansive, they glide with talons he grips. Myth like the seed, the night dark, unfathomable. How did owl begin? How did he find his way? How does owl turn his mind, turning his head more than halfway around? His feathered body makes the dream. He desires his whole way back around. In order to step away from the world, we are invited to enter. Enter among the bodhisattvas, enter among the Tathagatas, enter into worlds, enter into kalpas. We enter into the story. We enter our own story. Why should we need this subtle stepping aside from the world in order to know the world, in order to know ourselves? To the Greek and Renaissance philosopher, archetypes reveal origins or a model. In ceremonies and rituals, the archetype functions as a way of the mystery, the following the way of the ancients. And archetypes can be expressed through images arising out of the elemental substances, such as water, fire, air, flow, space, attractions and aversions, how our lives are shaped through the character of a particular element. An element penetrates, informing our being. For Carl Jung, archetypes are deep instinctual patterns at the root of our being. So they really are, no one made them up. It's like tornadoes and hurricanes and the sun rising every morning. Okay, these are the powers of the universe and the earth that we live in and are a part of. The power of the archetype is numinous, suggestive, It hints and alludes, and yet can never be thoroughly known. Archetypes, again, are living powers of the cosmos and not man-made. And they're not going to go away. You know, we learn how to be with all these things. We learn how to move with them. We learn how to converse with them. The archetype is not permanent, even though at times it is referred to as an immutable idea, as with the divine names. Elemental and primal, it is independent yet constantly changing through interrelationships. Archetypes take us out of the limited space of brute and merely personal reality, enlarging the perspective, giving us back our life. And when we know that something that we move through is universal and a part of being human, it has been my experience that it changes my outlook. I can see any issue in a very, very different way. I can see it actually even as something that expresses my belonging and how I am connected. In our night dreams, though enormously appreciated and important, we are ourselves images that are done to. In poems and reverie, a daylight imagination, we are invited to participate. So the reverie is a little bit different. It's kind of noticing kind of just stories and things that come up that are imaginative during the daylight, or even making a concerted effort to think about these things or question, different issues or problems. An unresolved yearning infused with the sorrow of the world, a mist which permeates, a woman in the tree, her deep and radical kindness, the hollow of the oak, a womb through which she is reborn. To mourn all frayed, unblossomed beauty, rites of passage remain untrammeled. This great oak with roots invisibly deep, a crooked back woman bent low, bowed down, she who wanders aimless now, names a sacred tree. To discover the key for that aspect of your life which teaches and yet has held you back, in crucial moments when the world rushes in its particular way so difficult for you, you're able to stay, to take the backward step, to take the next step, one foot firmly in front of the other, with care and with great faith. And interlude, Tree Woman walks the path of bones. Tree Woman walks the path of bones. She experiences the earth as an image of this body, envisioning a root moving through the body, the root imagination alive in the body, a fleshy network filled with invisible connections. The body, an inscape, a vast multicolored land. Amidst clustery thorns and nearly roots, an old woman retains the songs. She carries them, remembers, and holds them close. Well, that's my talk for today. So let me check the time. Well, I think we don't have time, right? No, okay, we don't have time, but I'm here and you can ask me questions. I really tried to go slower, and I learned that from my oryoki practice, because in the morning we have to stop the bowl and stop eating and sit there and wait. So anyway, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.